Hey guys, I'm Andrew McCorman. Welcome to Web3 TV. In today's video, I'm with Nifemi Aluko, the founder of Toffy's Domes, an NFT project based on the award-winning science fiction novel Toffy's Divide, which aims to empower collectors to liberate themselves and their communities through storytelling and bringing more diversity and equity into Web3. But before we do, make sure you register to watch every episode of Web3 TV here, where we share inspiring stories of all things Web3, making a difference to the world. All sorted? Okay, let's go. Nifemi, you're the founder of Toffy's Domes, an NFT project based on your award-winning science fiction novel Toffy's Divide, which aims to empower your collectors to liberate themselves and their communities through storytelling and bringing more diversity and equity into Web3. You're also the founder of KPA, which helps sales and business managers navigate the African market. You're an engineer, an entrepreneur, and a two-time best-selling author. So tell us, how did this incredible journey begin?
Thank you, Andrew. I think my NFT journey started in April 2021. It all started out by, just to give you a background on myself, right? Obviously, as you said, I'm a chemical engineer. I have a business background. I make music in my free time, and I've published 2 books now in my writing journey. What takes up most of my time is building my business, KPA, where we help global companies that are trying to expand across the African market. So as you can see, I have multiple interests, and I think the last decade or so is me trying to figure out, like, how do I balance all these interests and still strive to grow while sustaining myself. In 2021, someone I follow a lot for business advice is Gary Vaynerchuk, and I think in March 2021 he just started talking about NFTs. So imagine you're on LinkedIn just listening to business advice, and this person just switches and is like, learn everything about NFTs. And what started as a quick Google research has taken me down this rabbit hole that I'm still in. And that's kind of what started it off. I started participating in April or May when Gary Vee dropped his V Friends, and I purchased one. And ever since then, started off by joining the Discord, following what was going on in the space. Started collecting a few music NFTs because of my interest in music. And the rest is history. What just led down this rabbit hole just continued building, and I decided to drop my own collection, Toffy's Domes, that's based on a book that I just published in that same year, 2021.
That's awesome, mate. So obviously Gary Vee's a big inspiration, but I'm sort of sensing maybe the inspiration started earlier, right? You're obviously a very creative person. You love your music, you love writing. Can you tell us more about that writing background and probably more specifically the science fiction sides of interest as well?
For sure. So the writing started, right from when I was a child, I think. Just playing music, but it was more of just a side thing. My background, growing up, I'm Nigerian. So growing up in Nigeria is the education system is you're either a science student or arts, So I was more of this science student, as to go through my background as an engineer. But there was always the side that wanted to explore my creativity through art, and music was my main thing. So while I was working in Texas, at servicing mostly chemical plants, right? Doing a lot of analytical work, I just found this urge to want to do more than just like the analytical side. So I started exploring a little bit more my music interests, but that was just mainly at night, come back home, start making music. A lot of that was YouTube education, just watching how producers make music, mainly hip hop producers. Got my instrument, started making music and posting stuff on SoundCloud. And initially just started by me just making music and sharing it with my friends. But then that became like something that was like a habit. And, afterwards, after, well, I say 2-3 years, I released about 3 mixtapes. So while I was in business school, getting my MBA, I released I think the 3rd one. And right after I finished business school, I was like, okay, I want to release another one. But this time around, I was thinking, okay, my process beforehand was more make a bunch of stuff and then compile it and put it out. This time I was like, let me create a story first and then make a mixtape, right? So I sat down, I remember I sat down to write a short story for my mixtape. And that short story started off as just one day in the library, writing down a sketch of what the story could be. But that led me down like a 4 to 5 year journey to actually writing Toffy's Divide. And so what started off as a prompt for a story to just put out a mixtape ended up turning into like this award-winning science fiction book, Toffy's Divide. So even the writing started with the music. And published the book in 2021. But along the way, one thing as I was writing is like I struggled with the process of publishing. So I was writing the story, but after a while, you kind of get stuck when you're just on your own. But then I learned through a writing class the power of writing together with authors, the value of pre-ordering, doing a pre-order publishing process where I crowdfunded my book with Indiegogo. And that's how I learned how to publish a book. So I did that for my first book, which was about music and how it could be a catalyst for change in our society and organizations and communities that we live in. And then I just took what I learned from publishing my first book, Press Play, and I just repeated that to publish the science fiction book, Toffy's Divide.
Seriously inspiring, mate. So what's interesting is there's 2 things there for me. You've got that right brain, left brain thing happening with engineering or science and arts. So it's great that you're able to balance the 2. And what on paper appears that you started producing music and then you just naturally created a story behind it to maybe help the process. But what I'm really hearing, as you just mentioned, is it's allowing you to be a real change maker in the world, right? And then support your community of followers, I guess, and then potentially put your message out there to the world. So what fascinates me about that is, that like if I hear that story, I go, oh, that was the A to Z of it. But the reality is there's a deeper part of you that's calling you underneath all of that. Did you find that was happening? Like, were you aware of that as it was happening, or were you just following the process and sort of being guided as you went?
Yeah, I think when I started, I didn't know what was behind it. It was just more of there was a need to do beyond the what will I say, the left brain, the analytical side. There was just something that was like, okay, every day I'm going to work looking at chemical processes. I'm looking at some software code, right, which was necessary for a lot of the projects we were doing. I just had this need to like explore more. So, music is something that stuck, but I started doing different things. I think one of the biggest things I even did was, signing up for like an improv class and learning how to do improv and be in the present and learning that whole framework of yes and just going, right? And then I started sketching a bit. So when I look back, when I reflect, there was a big urge to do more than just like what I was doing with work. And that then eventually brought out the music part, which kind of connected me to like, oh yeah, I used to like making music. And, doing that over time. And once, when I put everything back and what I say started off as just following the process helped. Now that I look back, now you can look back at all the data points and say, okay, what is happening here? And a big part of it is, self-empowerment, trying to change the narrative. I'm Nigerian, African, and, when I moved to the US, a big part of the things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was like the way Africa is depicted in the media, right? And it's just something that probably just internalized. And a lot of my music, my writing is about bridging the economic gap, bridging the narrative gap. And me as a storyteller is me trying to contribute to changing the narrative a bit and hopefully inspiring other people to change the narrative the way the people before me inspired me to contribute. So I'll say that what is coming out now from, will I say, years of doing this is more of that need to empower myself creatively and economically, but also then pass it on to use storytelling as a way to empower people also that look like me.
Fantastic. And mate, we'll get to the connection there to Web3 shortly, because I'm sure with your ability to tell stories and project that message, Web3 is going to provide some amazing tools to do that on a larger scale. But tell us more about the Toffy's Divide. Like, as a story, what's it actually about?
Yeah, so Toffy's Divide, as I said, when the whole thing started, I was just looking for a prompt, right? It was more about trying to make this mixtape. So, I sat down, I was like, okay, I need to write a story. And then the next thing that came to my mind was, okay, let me just write a story about a guy trying to write a story, because I just felt like it would be the easiest way for me to keep moving. I'll just kind of borrow things from my life and kind of like write the story. But it's a dystopian tale based in the year of 2049. In the novel, the main character Toffy pushes through self-doubt and societal constructs to write a story that liberates himself and begins to mend the divided city that he's living in. A big part of that was influenced by the things I was seeing, by where we were in society. As at the time, I was just finishing business school at Stanford. And, I'm in the middle of Silicon Valley, but at the same time, I'm trying to, go back to Nigeria to start a business. And then, I was traveling between the two places, between San Francisco and Lagos. And then immediately you see like the differences between these two places. And then when you go into these cities, you start seeing the differences within the cities, right? So even though, San Francisco is one of the richest cities in the world, there's still a lot of economic divide within the city. So a lot of that came from what I was experiencing. And I just kind of put that through Toffy's story of he was an engineer trying to break away from this societal construct to write his own story. And there are all these forces trying to hold him back from writing the story. And he pushes through to finish. And that story liberates himself and the city that he lives in. So that's, will I say, the big inspiration for that.
So cool, right? Because let's be honest, it's an internal inspiration that's come from you, right? It's just all about you and your manifestation of life and observation of life and everything else. Just a side thing too, Nifemi, is how does someone access your book if they want to read it? Because I'm already feeling inspired and I'm an avid Kindle downloader. So where would we go and get it?
Yeah, if you go to Amazon, I think that would be the easiest place. Just go on Amazon, just type in Toffy's Divide. So that's Toffys, Divide, and by Nifemi Aluko, and you'll find it right there. You could get the hardcover, paperback, or ebook.
Fantastic, mate. And so obviously from the, let's call it the left brain side of things, there's the business side of what you're trying to do. And we'll come back to the storytelling part shortly, but tell us about KPA and how that's helping people in Africa.
For sure. So KPA is a business development advisory agency, and we have consultants in 20 countries across West and East Africa. And what we do is we help international companies that are trying to expand across the African continent with a focus on industrial and automation companies. And what we do is we help them understand the market. We help them come up with their sales strategy. We help them identify their customers. And then we also facilitate some strategic partnerships between those businesses and local businesses. What we find that most of our clients are industrial companies. They are trying to sell mainly to manufacturing companies. So there's a lot of B2B. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of face-to-face conversations. The challenges a lot of people face, when they're trying to expand across Africa is like they put Africa as like this one thing that is just one thing. I have to figure out Africa, but there are 54 countries. Is one of the most, I believe, the most diverse continents in terms of language, culture. So you have to understand all the different nuances. One of the biggest challenges we have on the continent is trust, because of the institutions are not as, well, I say, developed as some of the Western countries. So a lot of trust comes more from the community. Someone you can trust to do business with them. So things don't scale as fast as what someone in the US will be used to. So we come in as, well, I say, currently as an intermediary that bridges the gap and helps people move faster. And, it all started out as a website that I created just before I went to business school as an information resource. And then it turned into this business development agency. And it's still tied back to some of my goals in terms of utilizing my engineering background. I really believe industrialization and automation would be a big part in the development across the African continent. And, one of the big things for Africa is we have so many young people, so many. I don't know the stats. I think it's about 60 to 65% of the population is still younger than 25. So in terms of opportunities, when I look at that as one of our unique assets globally, is more of how do we empower the creative youth to kind of use their mind and believe in themselves so that we can kind of move things faster and build the economies within the African continent faster. So those are things that we're focusing on, but right now is mainly, B2B, helping global companies partner up with local companies to build our economies.
Oh, I love it, man. So again, it's really, they look like two separate things from what you're doing with your storytelling, your book and KPA, but I'm already sensing that they're not, right? There's a bigger purpose there with 65% under 24, trying to empower those people to obviously make successful businesses for themselves, as well as obviously, as I also heard, was the trust element, increasing trust. So in regards to that, and I guess this is our segue into Web3, is do you see that NFTs are that way to create more trust, or what's the connection there for you in relation to NFT business?
So in relation to that, definitely I believe one of the big things for us to build is trust, right? Globally, right? And we're being, I believe we're being pulled in different directions. There are the people that want to build trust, and there are all these tools that is actually working against us in terms of building trust, where there's now a lot of divides in people sitting in their own echo chambers, believing whatever information they want to believe. I think NFTs and just the blockchain in general is going to help in that aspect. When I tie it back to what is happening across Africa, I think what I'm inspired by is, when I really got into the space and I was getting on Twitter Spaces, I was so impressed by the number of Nigerians that were in the space already. And when I say they were already selling NFTs, these are young university students that are just in there already. And I was kind of surprised, like, oh, this is amazing to see that there are already all these young people that are getting economically empowered, finding ways around the institution that is kind of, in my opinion, holding them back, and working and selling the NFTs to people in South Korea, in the US, whatever it is. So I think it's going to build a lot of trust, but I think there's still a very long way a very long way to go. And it might happen faster than I think, but there are, a lot of governments are still, they're kind of scared of the whole thing. They don't want, they don't want to get disintermediated in terms of control, right? So they still want to stay in there. For instance, in Nigeria, it's not so easy to buy Ethereum, right? It's not so easy to start up a Coinbase account. You have to know someone that maybe can help you buy it and send it to your wallet, so there's still all those things in there. But I really believe that what the blockchain technology offers is a way for us to kind of come together and say, okay, I trust that this is from you and I trust you as an individual, so we can continue to exchange value between one another without some big entity between the two of us.
That's awesome, mate. Obviously, there's many countries out there repressed, right, with institutions and governments and everything else, and they don't want to lose control. And do you see those NFTs as a way of getting around that, I guess? And the other thing for me too, Nifemi, is like, if someone's new to this conversation and they're wondering, first of all, what is an NFT? And then what the hell is he talking about? How's that going to help the youth of Nigeria? Do you want to just fill us in a little bit on that from a business perspective?
Yeah, so NFTs, obviously from the definition, is the non-fungible tokens, right? Towards the end of last year, I started just boiling it down to like, okay, I call them digital collectibles, right? That act as a store of value. And that value can mean anything to anybody. It can mean a sense of identity. It could mean access to exclusive communities that you want to be part of. It can mean access to exclusive experiences, whatever that means. And it could also just be a sense of giving you this empowerment that you can make some kind of financial reward from making the right decisions, right? Buying low and selling high, basically. So in terms of business, when I think about it, I got into the space to almost experiment, just to see, okay, what's the space about, right? Well, what works and what doesn't work. And when I think of it in terms of my actual business, like KPA, I kind of keep it separate because I haven't figured out what type of value it brings to, for instance, my clients, right? And the reason I say this is a lot of my clients are in big corporations. So they don't, to be honest, starting last year, nobody wanted to hear anything called NFTs, right? It sounded like the biggest, not scam, but it's just like, no, let's just focus on the regular business, right? So I found that as I kept doing this, I had to find ways to talk about it where, it doesn't become a sticky point in a conversation, and just more focus on, even for me, trying to figure out what's the true value of using an NFT as opposed to just using a website, as opposed to just writing down a contract on paper and sending it and getting someone to sign it by PDF and sending it back, which is what we do with our business. But I truly believe that it creates value by bringing people together on this exchange that we can all trust, this decentralized exchange. And that's the main thing that drives me in terms of, okay, let me keep going, let me keep experimenting and see what can be built here.
And I suppose for those young Nigerians too, that's the attraction with Web3, right? It gives them a pathway outside of the system that allows them to, I guess, monetize their own IP, their own creativity, their own community or whatever, yep. But also on a global scale. So it's empowering entrepreneurship, really, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And some of these, the thing that's fascinating, and especially with, will I say, the Nigerian or African community, I'm in NFT space, I'm really just on the sideline watching, like, wow, this is happening. I'm not as plugged in. But what is fascinating is just the switch from when the person that was just maybe drawing on their iPad, right? doing this digital art to now saying, oh, I can sell this, and the switch to becoming an entrepreneur. That's the part that is very interesting. Like the artist no longer has to be that suffering artist that is like, eventually, you know, my parents wanted me to be an engineer or a banker, but I love drawing. And now there's this path where you can use your creativity directly to empower yourself economically.
Absolutely. And again, like I look at your scenario, you are a chemical engineer, you're at university, you are using your left brain, and you start to unfold the right brain, or unleash the right brain, more creativity. You create a book that's inspired by your own journey, which then leads to Toffy's Dome. So Toffy's Divide is the book, Toffy's Domes is the NFT collection.
Yep.
Tell us more about that. What is Toffy's Domes? And tell us, I just love hearing the connection here with your backstory, and then the bigger part of it was the Nigerian African connection, and how you're doing the same in your business. So Toffy's Domes is that to me. Tell us about that.
All right, so yeah, Toffy's Domes is a collection of 405 tokens. It was inspired by, as you mentioned, the Toffy's Divide, which is a dystopian science fiction story about an aspiring writer who battles all the tech forces to get his story heard in the year of 2049. Book was published in 2021, and because of my interest at the same time with NFTs starting in April, right? I'm writing a story, I'm running my business, I'm making music. As soon as I see the NFT thing, it was almost like a light bulb moment for me. Like, oh, wow. I like all my interests can kind of I can combine everything. My interest in music, technology, business, arts, writing. I was like, this is perfect. This is for me. That's how I felt. And, you know, I started looking around in different communities, and I'm personally someone that learns by doing. I can research all I want. I can look around and see, but for me to really understand something, I have to start like doing it. So I just told myself like, okay, I've been collecting a few, let me go create a collection. So what I did was, you know, there are 405 pages in Toffy's Divide. So what we converted the 405 pages into 405 unique tokens that to inspire and empower the storyteller in everyone that has the token. So the token is gives you access to what I call story merch, both in forms of physical and digital collectibles. And those collectibles are books. My book, a signed copy of Toffy's Divide, and my book that's coming in summer of 2023. Every token holder gets access to that. Also the audiobook, which I'm currently polishing to be published in a few months here. The token also gives you access to something I started earlier last year called Storytellers Lounge. Now, Storytellers Lounge is a community of multifaceted professionals, entrepreneurs. We come together to write together and improve our, creative confidence and live more meaningful lives. And if you have the token, it gives you access to that online community. And it also gives you access to, you know, some of my behind the scenes of my process of writing a book. There are a lot of people that tell me they want to write books, and it's just like, I don't know where to start. So what we're also creating within Storytellers Lounge is a Scribe program. And Scribe is just a manuscript development program where you go through this program where we help you write a very good first draft of your book within 4 to 5 months. And you have to have 2 tokens to get access to the Scribe program. And, you know, we're also trying to base every, you know, the total sale of all our 405 tokens. We want to use 10% to either donate to a organization that is trying to bridge the divide within their communities, or even use it to give it to an artist that is using their art to bridge the divide. I think a big theme in Toffy's divide is bridging the divide, right? So, if you look at the cover art for the book, it's a silhouette of Toffy and like a split between his right and left brain, where that split also depicts the city that he is in, a very divided city. On one side is the most technologically advanced city in Hightown, but in Lowtown is one of the most, deplorable places to live. And he uses his story and storytelling to kind of go between those two worlds and bring them together. So I do really believe that we are increasing our capacity to be more human, right? The more human beings evolve, but at the same time, I think a lot of things that we're building is causing more like divides within our communities, and those divides could be anything from wealth to digital to narrative divides. So, even the artwork has all the different rarities of using three things: self-awareness, curiosity, and empathy to bridge the economic, digital, and narrative divide. And that's the combination of those traits is what makes each token unique in the 405 collection in our in Toffy's Domes collection, and then it gives you access to story merch, storytellers lounge, and the scribe program to write your own story. So yeah, that's mainly how it came about. We launched the project in September 2021, and we've been minting ever since then.
That sounds incredible, mate. So, like, for anyone listening who sort of thinks they know what NFTs are, and it looks like an investment, you buy low, you sell high, and you might make it rich by, buying an image of an ape. It's so not about that, is it? Like, I'm hearing so much more than that. It's like you're mentioning inspiring creativity, you're bridging the divide, you're becoming a member of an amazing community. And I'm assuming that 405 people or NFT owners, and I guess you can own more than one, is an exclusive group, right? That group's never going to ever happen again because that was the 405, and then beautiful benefits that go with that. So it's just a really awesome way that you've just described the power of NFTs to me. I'm pretty new to them myself, but every day I meet people like you, Nifemi, I feel more and more like it's like a really different way of doing a membership program, right? But what people are really doing, they're buying into you and your values and what you stand for, because they also stand for that and they want a piece of that as well, not just for themselves, but to be part of a community like that. So just such a great depiction of the power, I guess, of how to build value in NFTs.
Yeah. I think, what I'm learning for a lot of the projects I'm a part of is, I've collected a bunch of NFTs, and apart from my project that is minting, right, I've never sold any NFT that I bought, right? So I'm not, they're different type of collectors. They're the ones that flip, which is also it's a cool thing, for people that flip, almost like, buying and selling baseball cards or anything. But for me, it's more about what I've found the biggest value is meeting other people that are within the community. So I'll use an example is VFriends, right? So the biggest sell for me then, when I was about to purchase literally a picture that Gary Vee drew with there's a video of him drawing this with a pen, and so like I never thought Gary Vee was like this artist, right? He literally drew it with a marker, changed it to a digital thing, and sold it, right? And when I was about to make the purchase, which I thought was not I was on the fence. I was like, this might not be the best thing to do with my income right now. But the biggest sell for me was he provided this utility where if you had the token, you get access to 3 years of this NFT entrepreneurship conference called VCon. And when I, just did the calculation, like, okay, I get 3 years for how much it is, I used to live in Austin before, and I know how much South by Southwest tickets used to go. I know how much, AC Austin City Limits tickets used to go. So, once I looked at that, I was like, you know what? Even if I don't sell this stuff, it makes sense. I get 3 years ticket to this event. And, going to the event, I've met so many people, so many entrepreneurs, artists, people that are just curious. They're not even thinking of building anything. They're just like, what is going on? And just meeting all those people, the value has already paid off just in a year, right? And, some of those people have become very good friends, people that were working together, building stuff together. And I just believe that access to this diverse community of people that have come from different fields is something that is very, very valuable.
Absolutely, mate. It just sounds incredible. Like I've noticed that with us, with Web3 TV, the community that we're creating and becoming part of, they all tend to be very open-minded, and I call them freedom fighters, but they're up for all possibilities, right? And most of them, well, I'd say all of them so far have been not just up for any possibility, but making a difference, right? It's not just take or win-lose scenarios. It's all about the win-win and making the world a better place. And I know that sounds maybe a little fluffy for some people, but it's true, right? That's how it feels.
True. Yeah.
So do you find that with your community?
Definitely. And it's almost like the last 5 months, maybe 6, have been tough in the space, right? Maybe even 7 have been very tough. We've gone, Ether has gone all the way down. It wasn't as cool as it was in 2021. And then the whole FTX thing happened, which just threw everybody that was even on the fence just jumped off the fence. I was just like, no, I don't want to deal with this crypto thing. So which kind of slowed things down for someone like myself that started a project. But the blessing that brought was it kind of weeded out a lot of bad actors. So the people that are still in the space now, that are building right now, I find are people that are really driven to actually use the technology to do what we believe it could do, which was decentralization, which was we believe that our data and is going to be more and more important the more we get into this digital world to supplement the physical world. We believe that data is going to be segmented into metadata, and we know that ownership of this data is going to be more and more important as we go on, especially what we've seen in the last 10, 15 years with all the big technology companies. And a lot of us want to disintermediate some of that ownership and bring the ownership back to the people. So I think that's what drives me a lot. And that's what's driving a lot of people that I interact with, that I see in the space. And to be honest, they're just some people that they just want to put some positive vibes into the world. And those are the people I find that I'm interested in connecting with and following.
Absolutely. Again, it's sovereign individuality, right? Instead of being controlled by someone or something else, an entity that really has, not necessarily everyone's best wishes at heart.
Exactly.
If we look at Toffy's domes, Nifemi, is like I can feel people just hearing you talk, they're going to know they're attracted to it anyway. But if you were to say, do the marketing pitch and who you're looking for to either buy the collection or become part of the community, who is it and how would they go about that?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question, because obviously this is something, marketing and building a community is actually the hardest, right, part of of doing this, right? Beyond minting and everything. Who we're looking for collectors that believe that storytelling can be used to empower ourselves and bridge gaps in our community, where we looking for collectors that are interested in identifying as storytellers that can change the world. We're also looking for aspiring writers that want to actually get frameworks and support to actually write their own stories, and also people that just want to believe, in the diversity and inclusion that could be brought, one, by storytelling and by participating in the space, right? I think the trend in Web3 is that, it could be the next wave of, let's say, economic empowerment, right? And, when I look at that, I think like, okay, I don't want to miss out on that. I don't want my family to miss out on that. I don't want my friends and people that look like me to miss out on that. So even when I went to VCon, I as much as it's diverse, I was looking around. We were like 10,000 people in this, stadium. I'm looking around like, oh man, I'm not seeing a lot of, people like me around here. And I'm to an extent, I'm a little bit used to that because, I've gone to a lot of schools where where I'm a minority, or whether it was at Stanford, whether as well I was in Texas or Chicago. So I'm familiar with these spaces, but this was one thing that I was like, I remember leaving VCon thinking, we need to get into the space, right? And I was telling all my family members, I convinced my mom in Nigeria to get a wallet. And so I think part of the mission is to try to get more people to participate so that we don't feel left behind also from a digital and economic perspective.
Sounds incredible, mate. And what it really sounds like, as you mentioned, the word is mission, right? It's not a book, even though there is a book. It's not an NFT, even though there's NFTs. It is a community, but it's empowered by an incredible mission to bridge the divide between, let's call it the high town, low town, the have-nots,
exactly,
and have-nots, etc. Mate, it's just truly inspiring, and it's so good to talk to someone like yourself, and I wish you all the best with it. Guys, if you haven't watched it yet, and this is the first time you've met Nifemi, we've actually done another interview, which is it's a bit more how-to stuff, but it's how to build, or what are NFTs and how to build value in them. It's very inspirational, and obviously it's like if you've been inspired by Nifemi's story, it's a way of going, well, what do I do about it next? Other than obviously going to Toffy's Domes website and connecting with Nifemi, it's another way of learning more in the space. So I'll put the link for that again. I'll put that here for you. And
for sure.
If anyone has any questions for Nifemi, or they have any thing they'd love to talk to him about, Nifemi, if they could put those in the comments, would you be happy to answer those on an ongoing basis for them, and obviously help connect them to your community?
Definitely. I think once that is shared, I can jump in the comments to discuss with anybody. Especially when with the NFT project, I'm very active on Twitter, so that would be a good way to connect with me. It's just Nifemi Aluko, which Nifemi_Aluko_. That's how you find me. And each token is 0.15 ETH right now. And you can mint it directly from the Toffy's Domes website, which is TOFFYSDOMES.com.
Well, Toff, I was gonna say well, Toffy, but that's I
get that a lot. I get that a lot.
Mate, really appreciate it. Hey, just been awesome, inspiring conversation. It's so good to see people doing amazing things in the Web3 space with a much bigger picture than themselves, and obviously making a difference to the world, which is what we're all about. So thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more of these conversations over the years, and I wish you all the best with everything that's going on.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Well, there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Web3 TV episode. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below. And remember, if you'd like to watch every episode of Web3 TV, visit the link below or subscribe to our channel. And remember to hit the bell icon so that we can notify you every time a new episode is released. I'm Andrew McComb, and I look forward to sharing more inspiring Web3 TV episodes making a difference to the world. I'll see you soon.